There I was, standing backstage, just waiting for my cue. The event organizer rushes up to me, looking quite frantic. "Al," she says, "we're behind schedule. We need you to cut your talk down from 45 minutes to 20. Can you do that?" Now, if I was like most speakers who memorize their speech word for word or maybe rely on a rigid script, I would have panicked. But instead, I just smiled and said, "No problem." Why? Well, because I wasn't delivering a memorized script. I was delivering a structured, chunk-based talk that gave me complete flexibility over my time without losing impact. And that's exactly what today's episode is all about. How to structure your speech the right way so that no matter how much time you have, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or a full hour, you can confidently adapt on the fly without ever losing your audience's attention. Welcome to this episode of the Next Stage Speaker Success Secrets podcast. I'm Lord Al Jensen, and after delivering more than 7,500 stage presentations, going all the way back to 1974, I've learned that the way you structure your speech is just as important as what you say. Most speakers approach their talk like a one-way street. They write it, they rehearse it, and hope they can deliver it exactly as planned. But here's the problem. What happens when your time gets cut at the last minute? What if you have to expand your talk unexpectedly? What if your audience loses interest midway through and you just need to adjust? Well, if your speak is not structured correctly, you're stuck. You either rush through your material, or you leave out key points, or worst of all, you lose your audience's engagement completely. But when you structure your talk using the chunk method, you have complete flexibility and you can adjust your speech on the fly without scrambling. You can keep your audience engaged from start to finish. In today's episode, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. By the end of this episode, you will know the number one mistake that most speakers make when structuring their talk, and more importantly, how to fix it. You'll know the chunk method formula, a simple, repeatable framework to build a talk that works for any length of time. You'll learn how to keep your audience engaged from the first word to the last without losing them midway through. And stick around till the end because I've got a special resource that will make structuring your talk effortless. So you can step on stage with total confidence, no matter how much time you're given. So let's dive in. Let's start with the number one mistake that most speakers make when structuring their talks. They treat it like a rigid, linear script. They write it out word for word. They memorize every sentence, and they hope they can deliver it exactly as they have planned. Now, on paper, it seems like a good idea. After all, preparation is key, isn't it? But here's the problem. What happens if your time gets cut in half at the last minute? What if your audience isn't responding and you need to adjust on the fly? What if you forget part of your speech and suddenly go blank? If you're relying on a word-for-word script, you're stuck. That's why so many speakers panic when they're asked to adjust their speech length. That's why they panic and ramble and lose their audience when they go off script. It's why they struggle to stay engaging because they're too focused on getting the words right. But here's the truth. A great speech isn't about perfectly reciting words. It's about delivering a clear, compelling message in a way that's engaging and adaptable. And the best way to do that? It's called the chunk method. So what exactly is the chunk method? Well, it's a simple, repeatable system for structuring your speech into clear, modular sections, or I call them chunks, so you can easily adapt your talk for any audience, any time frame, any situation. And here's how it works. A full-length keynote speech is typically 60 minutes, which means you will need 8 solid chunks that each run approximately 7 minutes. Now, each chunk functions as a miniature speech. It includes an engaging opening to reset the audience's attention. It includes a compelling story or an example that supports one key lesson. And it includes a clear takeaway reinforcing your core message. It also includes a closing and transition to smoothly set up the next chunk. Now, when structured correctly, your 8 chunks will create a complete 60-minute talk. But you can also mix and match chunks to fit any time frame without ever scrambling. You see, 8 chunks is a 60-minute keynote. 4 chunks, a 30-minute speech. 2 chunks, a 15-minute presentation. 5 chunks, 35 minutes. 1 chunk, a 7-minute TED-style talk. So instead of rushing through your content or cutting key points on the fly, you simply deliver the right number of chunks based on the time that you're given. This means that you never have to memorize a rigid speech. You just have to master 8 chunks, and you're prepared for anything. Let me give you a real-world example of how the chunk method works. I once had a 60-minute keynote scheduled at a business conference. And right before I went on stage, the event organizer came up and says, "Al, the president went long with his camping story and we're behind schedule. Can you do your talk in 30 minutes instead?" Now, if I had planned a linear, word-for-word script, I would have been freaking out. I would have been scrambling. But because my speech was built with the chunk method, I simply dropped 4 chunks, keeping only the strongest 4 chunks that I wanted to use. I adjusted my engagement chunk to be shorter, and I tightened up my closing chunk, and in seconds, I had a perfectly structured 30-minute version of my speech without losing any of the impact. The result? The audience was fully engaged. The message still landed, and the event organizer was thrilled that I was able to deliver exactly what I needed to without stress. And that's the power of the chunk method. It gives you complete control over your speech, no matter what happens. Now let's make this practical for you. If you already have a speech or a presentation, here's how you can quickly apply the chunk method. Start with 8 chunks. Develop a full-length 60-minute keynote by creating 8 chunks, each supporting your core message. Make sure that each chunk delivers value on its own so you can expand or contract your speech as needed. And then practice time flexibility. Try delivering your talk at 3 different time lengths. Do the 60-minute 8-chunk full version. Do a medium version, 30 minutes, 4 chunks. And then do a short version, just 2 chunks, 15 minutes. By doing this, you'll train yourself to adapt seamlessly. So no matter what happens, you'll always be speech ready. All right, so far we've covered the biggest mistake that most speakers make by relying on a rigid script. We've also covered why the chunk method works. It gives you maximum flexibility, keeping your audience engaged. We've covered the 8-chunk system for building a 60-minute keynote that can really be adjusted to any length, and a real-world example of the chunk method in action. We've also covered a quick win exercise to start using the system immediately. But we're not done yet. Next, I'm going to show you some advanced strategies for making your speech even more dynamic and engaging, including what I like to call the hook, hold, and hammer method, how to structure your speech to keep attention high from start to finish. Also, how to adjust your speech in real time without losing flow, and the time flexibility formula, how to cut your speech in half on the spot while keeping maximum impact. These next strategies will completely change the way that you approach speech structuring. Now that you understand the chunk method and how it allows you to structure a speech with total flexibility, let's talk about how to keep your audience fully engaged throughout your talk. See, one of the biggest reasons that speakers lose their audiences midway through a speech is because they assume once they've hooked them in the beginning that they'll stay locked in for the entire talk. But that's not how it works. Attention is not permanent. It has to be refreshed. That's where the hook, hold, and hammer method comes in. Hook them. Start each chunk with something that grabs attention again. An unexpected question, a bold statement, or a quick, engaging story. Hold them. Keep your audience engaged by including a relatable story, humor, or direct audience interaction in every chunk. And hammer. End the chunk with a strong, memorable takeaway that reinforces your core message. Most speakers start strong, but they frequently fizzle out halfway through because they don't reset their audience's attention. When using the chunk method, you don't just open your speech with impact, you restart engagement every 7 minutes by applying that hook, hold, and hammer technique within each chunk. This keeps your audience mentally locked in, preventing the dreaded mid-speech attention drop-off. Now let's talk about something that separates amateur speakers from professionals: the ability to adjust their talk on the fly without sounding unprepared. With the chunk method, this becomes effortless. Imagine this scenario. Your time gets cut in half. And for those of you who have spoken more than just a few times, you know this is a real thing. So imagine you are prepared for a full 60-minute keynote. But right before you go on, the event planner tells you, we're running behind. Can you deliver it in 30 minutes instead? Now, if you're using a rigid script, you are stuck. But if you're using the chunk method, here's what you do. Simply drop 4 chunks and deliver your strongest 4 that still support your core message. Keep your opening and closing the same because your speech will still feel complete. And use concise transitions to ensure that it all flows smoothly. Now, instead of rushing through content or cutting key points mid-sentence, you simply adjust by selecting fewer chunks. So what about this scenario? You need to expand your talk. Let's say the opposite happens. The event planner says, hey, our next speaker canceled. Can you stretch your talk to a full hour? Well, most speakers panic and they either ramble to fill time or they repeat the same points over and over. But if you structure your talk with the chunk method, expanding your speech is just as easy as shortening it. You just deliver all 8 chunks instead of just 4 or 6. You expand your stories, you add details or maybe a personal anecdote to each chunk. And you can engage the audience more. Maybe include a Q&A moment or interactive segment before you close. This ensures that your talk is longer but still structured, without any unnecessary fluff or repetition. If you want to be fully confident in any speaking situation, you need to practice adjusting your talk length before you step on stage. So here's an exercise to help you master that skill. Take your full keynote, 8 chunks, 60 minutes, and practice delivering it as a 30-minute talk, 4 chunks. Then practice 2 chunks, a 15-minute version. Finally, deliver a single chunk as a 7-minute head-style talk. When you practice this, something incredible happens. You stop worrying about memorization and start focusing on delivering impact no matter how much time you have. And this is the secret to being a confident, in-demand speaker, knowing that you can step onto any stage, being given any time frame, and still deliver an amazing talk. So let's quickly recap what we've covered today. The hook, hold, and hammer method, that ensures your audience stays engaged throughout your speech, not just at the beginning. The chunk method allows you to expand or shorten your talk on demand by simply selecting the right number of chunks. The time flexibility formula trains you to be speech ready for any situation, eliminating the stress of any last-minute changes. So this is how you stop being a scripted speaker and start being a truly dynamic, adaptable speaker, the kind that gets booked over and over again. So you're probably asking, why does this matter? Well, if you've ever struggled to adjust your speech on the fly, if you've ever felt trapped by a rigid script or lost your audience's attention midway, you're not alone. Most speakers memorize word for word, making it very difficult, if not impossible, to adjust. Most speakers cram too much into short talks or they rush through long ones without structure. And they lose engagement because their speeches aren't designed to reset attention. That's why I created the chunk method, so you never have to stress about last-minute changes or lose control of your message again. Now, to make it super easy for you to apply, I've put together a simple step-by-step program. It's called the Next Stage Speech Structure Formula, the chunk method for maximum flexibility and impact. Inside, you'll get the ultimate speech structure framework, a simple, repeatable system that adapts to any speaking situation. You'll get fill-in-the-blank speech templates so you can build a compelling talk in minutes instead of hours. You'll get the engagement checklist, ensuring that every chunk keeps your audience fully engaged. And you'll get the time flexibility cheat sheet, teaching you how to adjust from 60 minutes to 20 minutes instantly without losing impact. And because I want you to hit the ground running, I'm going to include 2 powerful bonuses. Number 1, the speaker's AI-powered prompt library. AI can dramatically speed up speech creation, but only if you use it correctly. And that's why I've built a library of AI prompts to help you generate attention-grabbing openings, to help you structure chunk-based speech outlines with ease, how to craft strong audience engagement moments effortlessly, how to develop powerful closing lines and calls to action that drive action. Just copy, paste, and refine, and watch how much faster speech prep becomes. Bonus number 2, the 7-minute chunk development guide. The plug-and-play guide will help you to quickly develop each of your 8 chunks for a full keynote or shorter talks. Make sure every chunk supports your core message without fluff. And use a proven structure to create a talk that's engaging, adaptable, and easy to deliver. Because you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, you can grab the full Next Stage speech structure formula, including the templates, the checklists, and the bonuses, for just $37. So click the link in the show notes, or it'll be right around this video someplace. Just click that link to get started. Stop struggling with speech structure. Stop feeling unprepared and start delivering speeches with confidence every single time. That's it for today's episode of the Next Stage Speaker Success Secrets podcast. If you found this valuable, please subscribe. Please leave a review and definitely share it with a fellow speaker. And remember, your message matters. So keep speaking, keep inspiring, and keep transforming your audiences. I just can't wait to see you on the next stage.